Hey, good afternoon, grade fives. It's really lovely to see you again. I hope you can all hear me very nicely. Just wave to me if you can. Can you hear me? Yes. Okay. For today's lesson, it's once again Sheena Cooney. I'm going to be teaching you grade 5 writing today. Now, for this lesson, what I want you to do is make sure that you have a paper to write on, that you have some nice colors to use, that you have a pencil and an eraser with you. Now, what I'd like to ask you very, very nicely for this lesson in particular, because it's a writing lesson, to just wait until nearer to the end of the lesson when I have a discussion time. Save your questions for then, because we've got some very important information to go through and we won't be able to get through it if we have too much discussion right in the beginning. So make sure that you have something to write with before we start. Now, while you're looking for your things and getting your few bits together, we remember those of you that were able to attend the last lesson, we learned about stories and reading strategies, and we learned that there were 5 elements to a story. That means basically 5 parts to a story. We had the characters, the setting, the plot, the conflict, and the resolution. Now, the characters is who is in the story. Okay, so anybody need to take that down? The characters is who is in the story. The setting is where this story is going to take place. So where the story is going to happen. The plot is our plan for the story. What is going to be our plan? How do we want the story to go? What do we want the story to tell? Okay, and then we have the conflict. The conflict in the story is something that happens that changes how the story could end. So it could end positively, it could end negatively. It depends on the event that happens, the conflict. Now, the resolution, it's a very big word, but I'm sure you've heard of the word conclusion. Now, the resolution means the same as conclusion. So conclusion is how the story is going to end. Okay. So characters is who, setting is where, plot is what, conflict is what happened, and resolution is how it's going to end. Okay, now all these elements in the story are very, very important because they keep the story running smoothly and it allows it to develop and to happen naturally, and then it's much easier for us to follow the story. And today we are going to write our own story. And I'm going to take you through the story, writing step by step. If you don't get all the information on this page down, don't go to it, and it will be available for you. So this is just to recap. Now we're going to begin. At the end of this lesson, you will be able to write a simple story within a frame. Now, a frame, I will explain to you this way. You get stories, you get letters, you get postcards. There are different ways to write. Now, a story has a different frame than other ways of writing. Okay, we write a story with a title, with paragraphs, and that is why we use it, we approach it a bit differently. Okay, we write events logically. So we're going to write them so that they make sense and they happen in order. We include a title, main characters, and the plot or the topic. We include a summary of the plot. That's kind of like goes right at the end where we kind of finish off the story. We use connecting words, and our connecting words we're going to use today is and, or, but. Okay. Use adjectives. Now, adjectives are very handy because they describe nouns for us. They describe objects. So if I'm going to give you a very simple example. If you have a dress and it is red and you say, this is my red dress. Red is your adjective because it is describing your dress. If you say, I have a brick house, then your adjective is brick because it's describing your house. Okay, and adjectives make a story more interesting and you really want to read it if it's got nice adjectives in it. Okay, give personal opinion on a topic. So you should be able to have a personal opinion about a topic. For example, if I say, write about this, the fastest car, then you should have a personal opinion about the fastest car. So you'd obviously, and I would hope that you'd include those ideas in your story. Okay. So this is basically what you should know and what you will know at the end of this lesson. Now, this is very important. Very important. Write this down. This is your writing process. You cannot ever, up until you finish school one day, you will always be following the writing process. And you have to do it this way because then you know you're doing your task at the best or at your best ability. Okay, and also when you go in higher grades, they will give you marks according to you using these different processes and steps. So you'd want to be able to make it a good habit. Okay, the very first one is brainstorm. Now, brainstorm simply means you just unwrap all your ideas. You get a topic and you think, oh, what can I do with this? What can I write? And these are just you thinking and getting ideas. You can even do research. If you want to write about the world's quietest animal or the world's largest animal or the tallest building, you might have your own ideas. You might have read something. You might have be able to go and research about it. Or if you were told to write a story about a six-legged horse, then you would obviously have your own ideas and you would be like thinking of all these wonderful ways that you could make a story happen. So this is quite important to brainstorm. It's the fun part. Then comes the part where we're going to have to concentrate a bit. This is called a first draft. Now, I know draft sounds like a strange word, but it basically means it's your first attempt at the story. Your first draft is when you just write. You do not worry about so much about spelling. You don't worry too much about punctuation. You don't worry too much about neatness. You just want to get your idea onto that piece of paper. So your first draft, you just write. Okay, you just get all those ideas onto the paper. Awesome. Your second draft, that's where you can go through and say, okay, I didn't have paragraphs in my first try at the story. Now I know I need 3 paragraphs. Where am I going to put the 3 paragraphs? What am I going to name the title of the story? This is also where you go and you check your punctuation and you check your spelling and you go through your story to make it look a bit better. Okay. I see Nison. Is it Nison that has a question? Okay. Right. So, yeah, I see we have 2 questions. Is somebody confused about what I've gone through at the moment? Okay. Right. If you've raised your hand, I'm just trying to see who has a question, because I can see someone's raised their hands, but I can't see who it is. Ah, there we go. Yes, sweetheart.
I can't understand by writing a story that we can use punctuation.
Okay. Right. Let me explain that. You do use punctuation. What I mean is when you write your first story, you might forget sometimes where a comma goes, where a full stop goes, because you're putting all your ideas onto the piece of paper. Okay?
Yes.
So you might forget, and that's okay. What I'm saying is it's okay if you forget the first time you write the story. All right. The second time you write the story, that's the second draft. That's when you can go back and make sure you've got your punctuation where it should be. Okay, and where you have your capital letters, where your paragraphs should be. But I am going to go through a story with you, grade fives. I'm actually going to do a story with you to show you. Okay, so don't get too worried right now. Okay, I'm just going through the writing process with you, then I'm going to do it with you.
Yes,
Okay,
miss.
all right. Now the revises and proofreads, that basically means that you can actually go to somebody and ask them to read through your story, whether it's a teacher or whether it's someone at home or an older friend or anybody else who could help you can read the story and maybe just say, okay, make notes, there's a spelling mistake here, or there's some punctuation that needs to go here. So just go to someone with the proofreading to help you go through and just check your story, that it makes sense and that your words and spellings are corrected. Your final draft is your very last one. Okay? That is the one that is going to be when you've checked your spelling, you say, okay, I've checked my spelling, I've gone to the dictionary, I've checked my words, I've had someone help me, and then you rewrite it neatly. This is your neatest draft. Okay, it's the last one you do. Now, when you do the writing process, you'll always have 2 or 3 drafts of your story. The first one, which is all your ideas. The second one, which someone helps you, which you correct and fix. And the third one, which is your final one, which is done. Okay, now I'm going to do this with you. So I just wanted to go through the writing process with you, but I am going to go do a story with you. Now, I'm sure you all recognize this.
Yes, miss.
Okay, so this is our map, our brainstorming map. Okay, and we use this. Sometimes you call it a mind map. You can call it a spider diagram. You can call it a spider map. You can call it anything you want. But this is where our ideas go. Okay. And what I like to do is I love to make this one colorful. I love to use color for this one because it makes all your ideas stand out. Okay, so I'm going to show you one that I did to help you. There we go. So you only have 5 areas. You have your characters. Okay, so you can actually draw this right now so that you have an idea of what you need. Okay, so we have our characters, we have our setting, we have our plot, we have our conflict, and we have our resolution. All right, now In the middle, you see the circle in the middle? That is where
Yes.
your name of your story goes, your title. Okay, so whatever you decide to call this story, that's going to go in the middle. The characters, you decide, the conflict, but every time you do a story, this is how you're going to actually plan it. Okay, you're going to brainstorm it. All right,
Okay.
so I just
Yes,
want to see, I have, yeah, okay. Just make sure, see, someone's raised their hands, but I'm still trying to figure out who it is so I can help them. Okay. I apologize if I can't help you, if I don't get to you. Please just maybe in the chat just type a message. Okay, because I might not be able to reach you or ask you. Okay, so you will always draw this. It doesn't matter what grade you are in. It doesn't matter whether you're a letter, a true story, an essay, a short story. You will always brainstorm. Okay. Now you at school you could be presented with different ideas. They might say instead of characters, they might say who is in the story. For setting, where's the story happening? For conflict, okay, let's rather go to plot. Plot. I like plot because then it's overall general, what is going to happen in my story. Conflict is, something really big happened in my story. What was it? You know, what changes the story? Resolution is just your ending. Conclusion, how is your story going to end? Okay, so I hope you have this drawn. I'm sure you've drawn it before. Okay, I'm to help you. I'm going to use last week's images. Okay, I'm going to use my hippo story that I used last week. Not last week, I apologize, last lesson. All right, so I'm going to use these pictures. Some of you have seen them before, so you know where we're going with this. I have a different sequence of what's happening in the story. Now, the reason why I put pictures there is so that it will give you a better idea of seeing what I'm writing. Okay, because when I write my story that I'm going to share with you and help you with, then at least you know what I'm talking about. Okay, so I'm sure you can all see the hippos. Okay, and you can see that it is the characters who is the family of hippos. Okay, and the where are they? They are in a river or near a river and near muddy water. Okay, there are 3 hippos. And if I look at this picture over here, the second one with the 3 hippos on the grass, we have a mommy and a daddy and a baby hippo. I'm going to call them that. And then we have the white bird, and that is going to be our egret. Okay, we call it an egret. It's got those long legs and that sharp beak. And in our last lesson, we talked about how the egret was actually there to pick off the fleas and the ticks on the wild animals. You will often see them even sitting on crocodiles, and they even sit on elephants, and they get rid of all the ticks and fleas. Okay, so you're not writing the story just yet. We're just going to visualize at the moment. Right, this is what we are going to do. We are going to use these images to practice writing our story. And before we begin, I'm going to go over a few important details. All right, our story is going to be a myth. So it's not going to be a true story. African myths are about animals. So we want to do an African story, an African myth, and the characters in an African myth are animals. All right, so That's why it's not true. Okay. Now, myths explain how many of the qualities of animals came to be. I'm going to go into that for you. So it's not a true story. Your characters are going to be animals. Okay. Now, I looked up a few examples for you. And if you look over here, it says at the bottom at my examples, it says how the cheetah got its spots, how the zebra got its stripes. These are different ideas, okay, for African story or African myth. Okay, so what you do is you don't have to choose one of these, but that is how you know it's a myth, because we know that animals can't really talk like we can talk. So that's why it's not a true story. All right. The qualities I was talking about is, for example, how the cheetah got its spots. So in a tale that's passed on from generation to generation, they will tell you a story maybe about a cheetah and how it didn't used to have spots and how it got spots. But most of these stories teach you a lesson. Okay. I don't know if you all know, you probably do know the story. Can someone mute their speaker, because it's I can hear you in the background. Okay. So what we're going to do is we're going to choose a topic that you've wondered about, something that interests you, because if it doesn't interest you, you're not going to want to write about it. Okay, something enjoyable to write about. I gave you ideas, but I'm not telling you you have to use them. All right, I'm going to use a story about a hippo, all right, and it also teaches a little lesson. Okay, so I'm going to do my story with you. You do not have to write this down. This page I'm on, it's just there to explain to you how I want you to approach the task. This is my mind map. Okay, so I don't know, I'm sure you can see it has different colors for the different areas. So my characters is purple block, and my setting is an orange block. Okay, so, and my title is in the middle in a pink block. So you can do your different areas of your mind map also in different colors. Okay, because it just makes it more fun. You can even draw pictures. It's awesome when you have pictures. So the title of my story is going to be Say Hello to Hippo. Okay, so that's going to be the title of my story. My keywords, I actually looked at the pictures. I looked at the pictures and I thought, okay, I have some hippo, I have a family of hippos. So then I wrote over here in my character block, family of hippos, hippo, that's the baby hippo, egret, that's the bird. Okay, so I've got my characters, and then in the orange block, I have my setting. And if I go back to the pictures, I can see that it's taking place near some felt. There's a tree, there's some reeds, there's muddy water, there's a river. Okay, so in my orange block, I wrote just keywords, mud, felt, and river. You never use sentences in your brain brainstorming, in your actual mind map, because it's supposed to take you 10 minutes. It must be the quickest thing you do, because your story is going to take time. So you do not want to spend a lot of time planning your mind map. It must be keywords, very quick. If you don't know a word, you go to the dictionary, even if it's an online dictionary, you look it up and you write down the meaning of the word. Okay, so you can use you must try and do this with only, I don't know if you can see there, I've even in the plot, I wrote there, hippo doesn't need a friend, egret wants to be friends. So that's my plot. That's how I want the story to go. Okay, but I didn't write full sentences. Then you have, on the other side, in the blue block, you have the conflict. What happens in the story to change its direction? So it chases away helpful bird, ticks and fleas bite. So those are the two big things that are going to happen in my story. Okay, then resolution is the conclusion, which is the ending. So we'll just say the conclusion. The ending is that Egret, if you look at my light purple block, Egret and Hippo become best friends. So there's my plan. I've done that. I've made it nice and colorful. Now I know what I want to write about. So now I go to the next step. I have my keywords. Now, these keywords are sometimes given to you. When you're asked to write a story, they will give you keywords and you can use them. Okay, so these are my keywords that I'm going to look at when I write the story. Now, you will notice that some of my keywords are actually in my mind map. For example, it says home of a family of hippos in the very top block. So if you go back to my mind map, you will see family of hippos. So I've written it very short and very quickly. Muddy river. If you look at my mind map, you'll see mud and river. So my keywords are yeah. You can use any of these words to help you write the story. That's what I've done. So for the first sentence in my story, I need to tell you, the audience, or whoever reads my story, who the story is going to be about and where it is going to happen. So using my keywords and my mind map, which says a family of hippos, hippo, egret, mud, veld, river. Okay, so I'm going to start and I'm going to go. A family of hippos lived in the grassy veld beside a muddy river. So I've now said to you who is in the story, where they lived. You can start a story with once upon a time. Because it's a story, it's not true. So because this is a myth, it's not a true story, you can start by saying, once upon a time, a family of hippo lived in the grassy veld beside a muddy river. Now, some of you are wondering if you must write this down. You don't need to. I'm just showing you how to write a story. So we're doing a story with me. Okay. So there's my introduction. Okay. Now, let's have a look. I'm going to go into my next part. And if you look at the picture, it's kind of helping me tell the story because in the picture, I see a hippo with the egret on its back. So, I wonder what words I can use to say what's going to happen next in the story. So I look at my keywords and I see which one does that picture look like the best to me. So let's go through them. We see don't do that, helpful little bird, ticks and fleas, mother and father. Okay, now I could use those words because there is a helpful little bird. And it does say don't do that. And the hippo does not look happy. However, further on in the story, it says mother and father. So there's no mother and father in this part of the story. So I'm not going to use those words. Then it says no help, roll over, nuisance. Okay, I don't see him rolling over in this image. Okay, don't need a friend, like fleas and ticks. So I think I could use that. I could use fleas and ticks with don't need a friend because he doesn't look happy. So I start my sentence and I go, a helpful little egret likes fleas and ticks because it's a helpful little bird. And then I put a full stop because I'm introducing what the little bird likes. She lands on Hippo's back and Hippo does not like this. Okay, so she lands on Hippo's back, and Hippo does not like this. He does not need a friend. Right, so this is the second part to my story. So I've introduced you to the characters and where it's happening. I'm introducing you to something happening in the story, something taking place. Okay, and it's going to tell how the story will progress and how it will end. So yeah, in this picture that I'm using, I see mommy hippo, daddy hippo, I see the little egret there. And remember earlier on we read about the keywords mother and father. So now I think, I'm going to use those words actually because they're a lot handier. And because mother and father is there as well, and they're in the picture, so I think I'll use them. And also if I look at my mind map, I have the family there, and so I think I'm going to include them in the next sentence. So a family of hippos lived, okay, we did that one. Right, my third sentence, Hippo's mother and father told the little hippo not to do that. So look at their faces. They're talking sternly to him and they're saying, don't chase the little bird away. So Hippo's mother and father told the little hippo not to do that. The helpful little bird would eat all the ticks and fleas. Okay, so now mommy and daddy are giving Hippo advice, and it tells us what the little bird does to help. Okay, so now the story is getting a little bit more interesting. So moving along, I see he's rolling in the mud. So I'm going to use this sentence over here, no help, roll over, nuisance. How can I use those in words to make a nice sentence? So what happened next? Little Hippo thought that the little bird was a nuisance. He rolled in the mud or over the mud and squashed the little bird. I don't need help, he said. So this is the conflict in the story. This is a decision that little Hippo made, and that changes how the story is going to go. Okay, so let's see how it's going to go. After a while, that's how we continue a story, especially we first use we can use once upon a time, or we can use in the beginning. So I'm going to just go back to the beginning and just show you how I started my story. I have my mind map, then I go, a family of hippos lived in the grassy belt beside a muddy river. A helpful little egret likes fleas and ticks. She lands on Hippo's back, and Hippo does not like this. He does not need a friend. Hippo's mother and father told the little hippo not to do that. The helpful little bird would eat all the ticks and fleas. Little Hippo thought that the little bird was a nuisance. He rolled in the mud and squashed the little bird. I don't need help, he said. Okay, so now he's refused help. So what's going to happen to him? All right, so now I've got to think to myself, okay, how can I make the story interesting? I mean, Hippo wasn't very nice to his new little friend who was just trying to be helpful. So how can I change the story to teach Hippo maybe a lesson and to make it a bit more interesting? So we see Hippo in this part of the story. He looks very unhappy. He looks like he's in a lot of pain. And he looks actually like he's going to cry. He's got these little spots on his back. So after a while, the fleas and the ticks bite little Hippo. They bite and bite. Do you see how I used and? I said after a while, the fleas and ticks. I'm using and to list two things. I'm listing fleas and ticks. So I'm telling you about two things. All right, that is why I use and. In the next sentence, they bite and bite. I repeated the word bite to make it more interesting, and also so that you can kind of like feel how Hippo must be feeling. So I repeated the word. Little Hippo tries to clean them off with mud, but this does not help. So in this sentence, I used but to add an effect of what is the result of what he does. So he cleans the mud, but does it help or doesn't it help? Is it a good thing? Is it a bad thing? And I, to share this information, to make it like, okay, how is he feeling? I said, but this does not help, so that you know that what he's doing isn't helping him. Okay, so the bites begin to hurt and little Hippo begins to cry. So this is where you learn how to use and to list things like fleas and ticks. You use repeating a word like I have used bite and bite. This helps you make it more interesting and so that you can imagine how the characters in the story are feeling. The but helps to show you the effect of the cause. So little Hippo tries to clean them off, but it doesn't help. So this is the effect of what he tries to do, the result. Okay, so the bites begin to hurt. So this show, now I'm sharing how he's feeling. Little Hippo starts to cry. So now you know how he really is feeling. And I've expressed it to you in the story. Because remember, when someone is reading your story, you have to be a bit creative because they don't know unless you say how a character is feeling, then they won't know how the character feels about something. Okay, so let's go to the next section. Okay, so little Hippo sees Egret flying by and he calls out, "Please help, I promise I won't drown you." The little bird landed immediately on little Hippo's back, and now they were the best of friends. So if you look here, you see my exclamation mark. That is expressing, that is calling out. Okay, so his voice is being raised, so it puts a bit of expression in the story. In the second sentence, I used the word immediately to show you that something happened straight away. So you can actually imagine this happening in your mind. Okay, I'm going to read it one more time, this sentence, before we go into the next one. Little Hippo sees Egret flying by and he calls out, "Please help, I promise I won't drown you." The little bird landed immediately on little Hippo's back, and now they were the best of friends. So there I have actually told you the end of the story, how it ended. This is what my story will look like when I am done. Okay, so now I don't have a rough draft because that is something that you will do on your own, and you don't really, you only want to present your story when you have your neat draft or your final one where everything's been checked. But I can go through this and just double check that I've started with a capital letter. A family of hippos lived in the grassy veld beside a muddy river. So I have started with a capital letter. I have ended with a full stop. Okay. A helpful little bird likes fleas and ticks. So I've introduced the little bird. She lands on Hippo's back, but Hippo does not like this. So I've used the word but. I've started with a capital letter. I've ended with a full stop. You need to check each and every sentence to make sure that you have capital letters and full stops. Okay. He does not or doesn't need a friend, full stop. Hippo's mother and father told the hippo not to do that, full stop. The helpful little bird would eat all the ticks and fleas. All right, so now there's my introduction. I've got the who, the characters. I've got where, the grassy veld beside a muddy river. I have also what starts to happen in the story. Okay. Then that's my first paragraph. So we know it's about a little family of hippos. We know it's about little hippo. We know it's about a little bird, and we know the little bird eats ticks and fleas. Now we want to continue the story. So we need to go on to the second paragraph. Between paragraphs, you always leave a line open. Only one line though, okay? You always leave one line open. Little Hippo thought that the little bird was a nuisance. Full stop. Start again with a capital letter. He rolled over in the mud and squashed the little bird. Now, there's a nice descriptive word, squashed. So now you can imagine that he didn't just roll on the little bird, he squashed the little bird. So it makes the story a little bit more interesting. I don't need help. There's your speech marks and your exclamation mark. I use that when I use the words he said, because that is exactly what he said. After a while, we use this in our stories to say what's going to happen following the first part of the story. After a while, the fleas and ticks bite little hippo. They bite and bite. Now, I don't know if you noticed, but I put this short little sentence on its own. And the reason why I did that is because I repeated two words and I wanted them to make the reader feel that they could feel how hippo felt. When you put a little sentence like that on its own and you repeat two words, they do it in poems as well. It just gives a bit more feeling to it. Okay. Little Hippo tries to clean them off with mud, but this does not help. The bites begin to hurt and Little Hippo starts to cry. All right, so now this is the climax of the story. This is, if you go back to the mind map that we have over here, let me show you quickly the conflict. We've spoken who the characters are, where it's happening. We've spoken about the plot. This is the conflict. Okay, so this part of the story I'm on right now is the conflict. Okay, the second part. This is where something happens to change how the story is going to go. Okay. Then you leave a space open before you write your ending or your conclusion. Little Hippo sees Egret flying by and he calls out, "Please help. I promise I won't drown you." So there we know that earlier on, when Little Hippo was busy rolling around in the mud was also part of where the water and the river is, and he could have drowned the little egret. So this part of the story is expressing that he makes a promise. He says, "I promise I won't do that." So it's expressing his feeling, how his feelings are also changing. Okay, and then it goes, the little bird landed immediately on little Hippo's back, and now they were the best of friends. So this is how we end the story. When I said, and now they were best of friends, that is my conclusion. That is how I'm ending my story. Okay, so the way you see the story in front of you right now, that is how a story should look near the end. It should have a title, 3 paragraphs at least, a space between each paragraph, start with a capital letter, and end with a full stop. Okay. Now it's your turn. This is an example of a map on eClassroom. You don't have to get it or go there to get it. You can just look at it for an idea, where it's a very nice template because it also, the sizes of the blocks show you how much information to put in. So in the center, once again, you have the title of your myth, the animal characters in your myth, okay? You have your setting. You have some ideas that you want to add in there. Like my ideas were about the egret being squashed. That was an idea. The problem or the conflict, that was where the fleas and ticks were biting Hippo and he didn't want help. Events in the plot. The first event was little egret landing on Hippo's back. The second event was Hippo rolling egret in the mud. And the third event was Hippo being bitten and asking for egret's help. Okay. The solution to this problem was, the problem of being bitten by ticks, was to have little egret as his friend. Okay. So this is a very, very nice brainstorming mind map that you can use when you're planning your story. Okay, now what I put also here for you is some links where you can actually watch the story. On African Storybook, they have a lovely story of the little hippo that you can watch, okay, and read along. Now, these are some things, okay, that's for my next lesson. But this is what I'd like you to do with the information I taught you today. I want you to write your own animal story, okay? It must be an animal story because remember, we're writing about myths. So in a myth, your characters are animals and it's not a true story, okay? So you're going to write, an animal story for me. You use the writing process, which I'm actually going to go back to right now. In the beginning, we're going to use the writing process to write your story. And then you're going to correct it yourself. And you're going to check your spelling yourself. And you can also get somebody else to check your story. And then you write a neat draft. You can even take photos and you can send it to #lockdownschool, eSchool, okay? You can send it so that we can have a look at your story as well. We'd love to see your stories. I'm quite excited to see what ideas you come up with. Now, Miss Cooney, I'm just going to go to the beginning because I want to show some of you joined in a bit late and you weren't able to see the writing process. So I just want to show you. This is the writing process where you brainstorm. That's when you use your mind map, okay? Your first draft is when you write the story just to get all your ideas down. Okay, so you're not worrying too much about spelling and stuff. You're just writing. Oh, you've got this idea, I got this idea, I got this idea. Okay? Your second draft, somebody goes through the story with you, helps you fix a few things, so you rewrite it. Your final draft is when you know you've checked all the capital letters, all the punctuation, you've got the right amount of paragraphs, you've got the right title to the story. Now, what I'm going to do is I'm going to open up for a discussion, okay, or for questions. So if you have a question, please raise your hand, okay. Anybody with a question? I see lots of raised hands. Now I have to find you. Yes, sweetie.
Ma'am,
Yes.
when you what you start to write, like when you done with the mind map, what you do?
When you're
How
done
many
with
lines?
the
How
mind,
many lines do you write?
that is a very good question. Very good question. I always follow this rule. A sentence has at least 10 words in it. Okay? Most sentences
Yes,
have
ma'am.
at least plus minus 10 words. Okay?
Yes,
So
ma'am.
normally in your first paragraph, you want 4 to 5 sentences. Okay, so you want about 4, let's say about 4 sentences to introduce it. then your middle paragraph would be maybe 1 sentence extra, like about 5 sentences. Okay? And then your last paragraph, maybe 3 to 4 sentences. Okay, so you're going to have about, let's see, maybe about, in your short story, your African tale, like this one that I'm doing, about, how many sentences do you think that adds up to? About 10?
Ma'am, I think it's more.
You think it's more? Okay, let's see. Yeah, it'll be about 10 sentences minimum. Let's put it that way.
Yes,
Okay,
ma'am.
so it'll
Yes,
be
ma'am.
between 40 and 50 words. Okay.
Hey, ma'am, how many words are you doing?
Let's have a look. Actually, to be honest, sweetheart, that's a very good question. Let's see. I've got about 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. I've got about 13 words in that sentence. So, and I've got about, let's see how many sentences I have. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 12, 13, 14, 15. I've got, I've got quite a lot more words than 50. Okay. So at the moment, look at my paragraph. Do you see I have about 4 sentences at the top?
Yes, ma'am.
I have about 4 lines. Sorry, sweetheart, 4 lines. I have 4 lines in the middle, and I have 3 lines at the bottom. Yeah.
Yes, ma'am.
So now it depends on what the requirement is, what you're asked. Okay, so if you're asked to do 50 words minimum, then you do 50 words minimum. But this is way more than that. Okay, because I've added a few descriptive words as well.
Yes, ma'am.
All right, but if you want to, when you can go through this PowerPoint afterwards and you can just check, okay, and you can just count how many words I have and see if you want to follow that idea. But it's between 50 and 60 words for the short story.
Okay, ma'am.
Okay, now guys, I've really absolutely loved having you. Please take a look at the links you see, and see if you can go watch some stories, and you can write your own story and ask someone to check it, write it neatly for me, and ask someone to please send us a photograph of your story or email it to #lockdowneschool. I'd love to read your stories. Will you do that for me? Okay, next lesson is a language lesson. So we're going to be talking about teaching you about nouns, adjectives, question words, and connecting words. Okay, so this is my little task for you. And this is where you can find us. Okay, #lockdownschool at African Teen Geeks. You can watch our lesson today again. So if you've missed anything or you missed part of the lesson. And then I will see you guys next time. Bye.
Bye.